What's up, guys? I'm DK, and you're watching Pro Wrestling What If, the series where I look at the different what if scenarios as terms of the world that we call professional wrestling. On an episode of Monday Night Raw in June of 2010, the Nexus would make their debut on WWE TV, a faction filled with competitors from the first season of the competition show known as NXT. Definitely not the NXT we know and love today. And so the Nexus would interfere in the main event of that episode of Raw, tearing the ring apart and attacking several members of the WWE roster, including even one choking out ring announcer Justin Roberts with a tie. And we all know what happened due to that incident. And for the next couple of months, the Nexus would become a formidable force in the WWE, wreaking havoc each and every single week. And this would lead to a big multi-man elimination tag team match at SummerSlam 2010 that would pit various members of the WWE roster for Team WWE against the Nexus. And a lot of us did believe that WWE were giving the stamp of approval to the Nexus by having them win, but that wasn't the case, as John Cena would last eliminate Wade Barrett and Team WWE would win the match and cause a halt to any momentum for this brand new faction. And now that we are on the road to the 2024 installment of SummerSlam, this has become one of the biggest SummerSlam what ifs to this day. So of course, today's episode, we're talking about what if the Nexus had won at SummerSlam 2010. And if you end up enjoying this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share this to all your friends, subscribe, and press the notification bell for when future episodes get released, and leave a comment down below about today's topic or suggesting a future topic for an episode of Pro Wrestling What If. This episode will also be based off of the 5 big points. So the first big point that I think would happen is that the majority of the members would be holding championship gold. I feel that if the Nexus would win, it would lead towards the group holding basically all of the championship gold within at least Monday Night Raw. We would definitely see, just like the real timeline, Justin Gabriel and Heath Slater becoming the tag team champions. I'm not sure if we would get the reign of John Cena and David Otunga as the champion, but of course the big thing would be Wade Barrett actually becoming the WWE champion. You knew that it felt necessary that Wade Barrett at some point would hold that WWE championship, and I think he definitely would have held that title if the Nexus had won at SummerSlam 2010, and I think a lot of the storylines we've seen after this could have happened realistically, like the Wade Barrett versus John Cena storyline. The second point is that I think The Miz would have been the very first failed Money in the Bank cash-in. In the real timeline, there was a match between Wade Barrett and Randy Orton at Survivor Series in 2010, and with that match, Randy Orton ended up retaining the WWE Championship. But the following night on Monday Night Raw, there would be another match between the two, but beforehand, the Nexus would attack Randy Orton. And although the match still continued and Randy Orton still retained, The Miz then cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase and successfully defeated Randy Orton and became the new champion. And part of me thinks is that if the Nexus won at SummerSlam 2010, and if they had a big name like Randy Orton be the WWE champion, then I think The Miz would have been used as a failed Money in the Bank cash-in to transfer the championship over from Randy Orton to Wade Barrett without Wade Barrett actually pinning Randy Orton. And I think it wouldn't have happened at Survivor Series because I think the same scenario happens with John Cena being the referee, but I think maybe it's the TLC event at the end of the year that we actually see this cash-in. We could see a match between Randy Orton and Wade Barrett after Wade Barrett at this point would have won the championship at Survivor Series, and maybe during that match we do get The Miz cashing in the Money in the Bank, making it a triple threat match, but Wade Barrett retains because he pinned The Miz and not Randy Orton. And even if The Miz didn't cash in throughout the year of 2010 and maybe he tried in 2011, I think at that point it would have been too late for The Miz to cash in, and it just doesn't seem likely for The Miz to be the first person to ever cash in the briefcase WrestleMania, and unfortunately he can't go after the World Heavyweight Championship, considering that the specific red briefcase he held was only being able to cash in for the WWE Championship. And with a top heel group like the Nexus and most likely Barrett holding that title and then transferring it maybe to John Cena as a big babyface, there would just be no way in that particular point that Miz would be able to successfully cash in that Money in the Bank briefcase, especially within the 1 year period from basically July 2010 to July 2011. And we seen in July of 2011 CM Punk winning the WWE Championship. So yeah, in the real timeline where Miz actually cashed in was really the only time he could actually successfully cash in my mind. So other than that, he would have been the very first person to fail his Money in the Bank cash in. The third point I wanted to bring up is that the group, the Core, would have never been formed. At the end of 2010, going into the beginning of 2011, the Nexus had new leadership under CM Punk, making him the new Nexus, and members would have to do initiations in order to stay in the group. Wade Barrett was kicked out of the Nexus as its leader, with CM Punk becoming the new leader, and later on Justin Gabriel and Heath Slater not having it as terms of the initiation, thus having Wade Barrett, Justin Gabriel, and Heath Slater join the SmackDown roster and would form the group known as the Core with Ezekiel Jackson. However, with this new group of the Core, it would not last that long, as they would end up losing an 8-man tag team match against Big Show, Kane, Santino Marella, and Kofi Kingston in 90 seconds at WrestleMania 27, and the group would shortly disband. And so had the Nexus won at SummerSlam 2010, they have a lot of championship gold, especially going into 2011, there would be no Core, and there would be no CM Punk as a part of the Nexus, and he'd be doing his own thing. So with the Nexus being a dominant force at this point, there's no point of separating the group, making a new Nexus, and the Core, it would still be the same Nexus as we essentially seen in the summer of 2010. But who knows, could there be a possibility that Ezekiel Jackson ends up joining the Nexus? Point number 4 involves the WrestleMania 27 main event, John Cena versus Wade Barrett for the WWE Championship. And I think how we lead into this possible main event match is basically because a lot of what we've seen in the real timeline actually happens. After SummerSlam 2010, we probably would see Wade Barrett go straight into that championship picture, entering that scramble match at Night of Champions. It would lead to the match that we've seen where Wade Barrett faces John Cena and ends up having John Cena join the Nexus. And with the championship match between Orton and Barrett at Survivor Series with John Cena as the referee, we would see Wade Barrett actually win the WWE Championship at this point, with John Cena being forced to do the 3 count, which would still continue a storyline of John Cena being a part of the Nexus and being disgruntled of the fact that he is a part of the Nexus, and it would actually lead to John Cena winning the 2011 Royal Rumble match at this particular point. And on the road to WrestleMania, we would probably see some sort of storyline kind of like what we seen with Batista in 2005, where Barrett is kind of manipulating John Cena into having him challenge for the other world championship at WrestleMania instead of going after his championship, which would actually mean that we could have seen in this timeline John Cena versus Edge for the World Heavyweight Championship, which would have been a dream come true because we'd never seen a one-on-one match between Edge and John Cena at WrestleMania. The closest thing we did see was the triple threat match with Edge, John Cena, and The Big Show for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 25 2 years prior. So it actually would have been crazy to think of the idea that we may actually could have gotten Edge versus John Cena at WrestleMania, but it would probably lead to some sort of angle that involves John Cena getting mad at the Nexus and ultimately wanting to challenge Wade Barrett instead, getting John Cena versus Wade Barrett for the WWE Championship. And in my mind, I could actually see this match actually being much better than what we've seen with John Cena and The Miz at WrestleMania 27. Although it may sound like at this point that John Cena should beat Wade Barrett for the WWE Championship and basically end the storyline, I do see WWE basically doing the same thing as they did in the real timeline, is have The Rock make some sort of involvement in the match and cost John Cena so they can set up the quote-unquote once-in-a-lifetime match for the following year's WrestleMania, which not gonna lie, if we had a Wade Barrett John Cena match, and maybe even still with that ending, this WrestleMania of WrestleMania 27 could have been a lot better than what it actually was realistically, especially if Wade Barrett's in this match. We don't get that 8-man tag team match with the Core losing in 90 seconds. And the fifth and final point is that the Nexus still would have ended in 2011. So of course, after WrestleMania 27, that's where I think the Nexus starts to dissolve. And one of the big things is that I think Wade Barrett would drop the WWE Championship at the following pay-per-view of Extreme Rules to John Cena, just like how John Cena won the WWE Championship in the steel cage match involving Miz and John Morrison. Or was it R-Truth? I can't exactly remember 2011 all that much because it was very hot garbage at that time. But then we would see the pattern of the other Nexus members losing their championships, and most likely the culmination of the Nexus basically disbanding would probably take place at the 2011 SummerSlam event, since it was kind of around that time that we did see the new Nexus end due to CM Punk leaving the WWE with the championship itself. And although I kind of would like to see a scenario where maybe the Nexus gets drafted to SmackDown and they start reigning on that brand, with what we seen on SmackDown in 2011, I felt like the Nexus would definitely fumble on that brand, especially seeing that great feud between Christian and Randy Orton that lasted from basically Extreme Rules all the way until SummerSlam in 2011. And we also seen the rise of Mark Henry during the Hall of Pain storyline. So Mark Henry definitely would have overshadowed the Nexus as the top heel attraction of the SmackDown brand in 2011. So we definitely would have seen the end of the Nexus in 2011 still, except that it probably would have lasted a little bit longer, and it probably would have ended a lot better in this timeline than it did in the real timeline.